Hello, this is James Hudnall, and I am the writer of many comics. Been in the business for over 30 years. Tonight is the first Hudcast, as I like to call it. It's the first time that I'm going to get into comics and Comicsgate and a lot of other things. Hopefully, the volume is good. I'm getting on early so I can work out all the kinks because this is the first time I did this. I'm going to have Roland Mann as my guest as soon as I get him hooked up here. This is all new. I haven't, like I say, I haven't done this before. All right, there we go. Looking for Roland to start in. We got 3 people. What is this? Okay, so I've been doing comics since 1986. I got in the industry in 1985, working for Eclipse Comics, which was a publisher back then. They were a pretty big publisher. They did mainly independent comics. I was a computer programmer before, and but I always wanted to be a writer since I was a kid. So I wanted to be a novelist, but the opportunity, I've always been a comics fan, and the opportunity came to be that I happened to move up to Sonoma County and in Northern California, and it just so happened that Cat and Dean Ironwood, who are the publishers of Eclipse, were also in that county, and I met them, at a comic store or something, and I got to know them, and I offered to work for them for free for one day of the week to learn the business and to help them with their marketing and everything. And I did it without pay. I did it so I could get a foot in the door and learn the business because I didn't know enough about publishing comics. I originally wanted to publish my own comics. The first time I thought about doing that was 81, actually. And I was actually looking at doing that. But after I researched everything, back then it was incredibly costly to do a color comic. It still is, but it was back then you had to work with printers back east and all this, and the technology was very limited as far as what you could do. You didn't have the ability to do the kind of color stuff that you could do today. Anyway, so I wanted to learn the business before I jumped into it. So that's why when this opportunity came up, I took the opportunity, and I'm really glad I did. It set me on my path to where I am today. Now, it's not always an easy road. In fact, it's a very hard road to get into entertainment. I don't recommend it unless you really are determined and you're willing to take a lot of hard knocks, because you will suffer a lot of slings and arrows and a lot of feast or famine. If you're lucky, you'll have feast, but a lot of people just have famine. It's a tough business. It doesn't matter if it's comics or film or whatever. Any kind of entertainment is very tough because there's so much competition. You'll be overwhelmed by the competition, actually, when you try to get into it. It'll really blow your mind. When you first get your first comic out and you're so excited, and you go to the store and you find out that a bunch of, like, 100 other books came out the same week, and you're just stuck in the back in some shelf, and because you're new, unless you know the store owner or something, you're ignored. That's not fun, and that's the kind of reality that you have to deal with when you're publishing. You have to just keep stick to it, and that's what I did. And I chose to basically publish my books through Eclipse, but I was actually producing the comic. Eclipse was the distributor, but I was self-publishing essentially through Eclipse because they knew how to do everything. All I had to do was turn in the work, and then they would handle it. and they would take their cut, which is sort of like Image today and some other publishers. I've always got into comics with the intention of doing something original and not try to be the Hulk writer or the Batman writer, because a lot of people in my generation, especially, they were fans that wanted to take over Daredevil or something. That was their whole goal in life. I've always thought that was a terrible goal, because essentially you're working for the man and you don't own anything, and you're easily disposed of. If you're working for a mainstream comic publisher, they can easily replace you at a heartbeat, and they do. An editor changes and the new editor doesn't wants their friend to take over the book. That's just the reality. There is no job security working for mainstream comics. So I never saw that as the path I wanted to do. But I knew that you had to work for those publishers to get known. So I started out, I worked for Marvel and DC. And I got in there just through a series of luck, but also just jumping at opportunities when they came up. That's what you have to do. You have to look for opportunities. So in my case, my opportunity was, I knew Brett Anderson, who today people know as the artist of Astro City, but back then he was working on Strike Force Morituri for Marvel, and he was quitting the book. He told me that he was going to quit after, because Peter Gillis wanted to leave, and he decided he wanted to go with Peter Gillis. He didn't want to stay around. And so this news was before anyone else heard that news. So I asked him for his editors. Carl Pott was the editor. I asked for his phone number, and I got through to him, and he said, "Send me your book." So I sent him Espers, which was my first book, and he was impressed enough and gave me the job right there. So when that was just a very lucky opportunity. Okay, so let me see if I can find. All right, I got 4 people so far. Somehow I've got to get Roland on here, but I don't see him yet, so I don't know how I'm going to do that. Let me hold on a second while I check something. Okay, sorry about that. I'm still working on this. I was trying to get this ironed out early. Anyway, let me try. I just try to get him on. Oh boy, this is exciting. I don't even know where how to answer this. Oh boy. Hello? Oh boy, this is nutty. See, I should have. Okay. Yeah, this is working out great. I'm trying to get a connection to Roland Mann, and he's texting me, but we can't figure out how to do it. I should have asked somebody that's done this already. It's just a lot of people I know that do this. They're busy all the time. It's hard to get a hold of them. Geez. It says I've got an incoming video call, but I don't. Oh, there we go. Hey, Roland, are you there?
Hey, hey.
We did it.
I see you.
Okay, now we're in business.
Can you see me?
I can see your icon. I can't, it doesn't show you your face. I don't know if you have your camera turned on or not.
All right.
Do you have you don't have to put it on. It just depends on if you want to.
I don't mind. I'm trying to figure out how to do it.
Yeah, there's usually a little thing.
Let me see if I can figure out how to unmute my camera.
Okay.
So I didn't mute my camera intentionally, so I'm not really sure what I did.
Okay,
I am here.
I got Roland on, but I'm on like two different things. I'm on Google Hangout, which is what I tend to do, but I thought they were connected because they're owned. I mean, YouTube is owned by Google, so I thought that YouTube would be connected. But anyways, I'm talking to him on Google Hangout. Oh, now he's disappeared. I would switch screens.
Oh, no.
No, you're on. It's just that okay, there. I had to click something to see you. It's weird. I'm not sure if my live stream is the same or if people on the live stream can hear you, but this thing should be archived, and so when it's over, it'll be on YouTube anyways.
Okay.
So this is like a weird experience. I'm gonna have to next time. I'll just go directly to Google Hangout, and that should fix the problem.
Well, I'm not yet. I was trying to. I was all over YouTube, and I saw there's a little icon at the top at YouTube that says join live, or it didn't say join live stream, it just said live stream. And every time I clicked on it, it tried to get me to start a new live stream. And I'm like, no, I don't want to start another one. I just want to join this one.
Yeah, I gotta see I gotta figure this out because I want to start doing this regularly, and unfortunately, I don't understand some of this. I should have figured it out a while ago, but I never did.
It's okay.
Yeah, it's just a little embarrassing. I mean, I'm a tech person, but there's still a lot of things for me to learn. The other thing I want to do is have my chat window up, but I can't see the chats or anything. I don't know how many people are on or what. On the other channel, it says there's 3 people watching, but I don't know if that's 3 people or what. It's hard. The number keeps vacillating.
I think
that's why I didn't announce this ahead of time, because I didn't know what this was. Sort of more like an experiment than anything.
Yeah, I'm gonna continue to fart around with the YouTube stuff and see if I can't figure out how to get in. I don't know how to join it, and I think I can see you on YouTube. Of course, I'm making hand motions like you can see me. I can see you on YouTube, but I haven't figured out how to actually join your stream. So
it just has your face icon, your cartoon face, and then whenever you talk, there's like little audio things that go out, in and out, that kind of give you the impression of sound. Who did that? Your little face caricature?
That is done by Mark Largent.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, he's an artist I knew back from Mississippi. He's doing a lot of I don't even know what he calls them. He does a lot of spoof videos now, using models. He puts together like he did one called The Wobbling Dead, and now he's working on a stalled Trek. Just spoofs, real funny stuff. We were in business together for all of about 6 months, and decided that we both had different ideas of what the business. We tried to start an advertising business. This was in the late '90s after the comic crash. And we both decided that we had different ideas about what the other one should be doing. So we shook hands and parted ways. It's very, very amicable. But anyway, so
yeah, it's
I'm still trying to. If you get a message on YouTube, I'm still trying to join you on YouTube. But I'm not real sure how to do that. So
yeah, it doesn't have any it doesn't have any chat thing or anything. So I don't know. Um, like I have two windows up. Basically, I have to switch between them. On one, I can see my face, and it just says I'm the only one participating. And then on Google Hangouts, I've got you. I don't know how to connect the two or which is what. It's kind of crazy, but that's just how you learn
yeah,
things, I guess, is trying. So anyway, yeah. So you and I have known each
I'm
other
not a
for
drunk uncle.
what's that?
Brad said I'm a drunk uncle.
Uh,
I'm in the chat. Sorry, I'm still at your YouTube channel trying to figure out how to join.
yeah. I don't see the chat window for. Usually, if you do these things, you can get a chat window going, but I'm not.
Yeah, I can see the chat window.
All I see is Roland Mann, and I don't see anyone else, but I don't know. I'm not sure. Is there somebody in your chat window besides us? I mean,
This is on your YouTube channel. Got Brad Nobles made several comments. Hey, Matt says he can hear both of us clearly.
That's
but
good.
He can only see you. So.
Okay. Well, I can only see myself.
You guys know how to get me to join in on him and his, so I can show up too.
What's that? Oh,
I was just asking if either of them knew how I can join. Yeah, see, I tried to do it, and it just looks like it took me live, and I don't want to be live on my own channel. I don't think unless I have to be live to join you, which I don't know if that's the case or not. So I don't know.
Well, I'm glad that they can hear us at least. That's one of the things I was worried about. I meant to do this like a couple weeks ago, but I couldn't get. I was trying to record audio. I have this Indiegogo thing I'm working on for this project called Agenda, and I wanted to do the video, which is crucial to doing one of those. Unfortunately, the microphone I had, I couldn't get good audio because I had to, I wanted to sample out the audio and put it in with some video clips and all this other stuff. So I ended up buying a new microphone, and then I had the same problem. So I thought it might have been the sound card, except my sound card works, but it's also where I plug in the thing. So then I found out that the microphone I bought needed a power thing, so I got that. Still have the same problem. So I ordered another microphone that should work, but the microphone on this camera works fine. It's just that for recording audio separately, I don't know if it's the right thing to use. But I just got to work out these kinks, But yeah, I've been.
If you'll look back on it in I was going to say a month, but heck, you'll look back on it in 2 weeks and say, "Well, I sure had a hard time getting that figured out." But it's so easy when you figure it out.
Yeah, it is. I mean, well, here's the thing. I wanted to do this Google stuff YouTube. I wanted to do my own YouTube channel when they started, and that was a while ago. That was 2009 or something.
Yeah.
And I just never. I just procrastination, and I really wish I had got into it then, but still, better late than never. That's sort of like.
There you go.
I mean, I wanted to be a comic book writer, really early, but as I was saying at the beginning of this video, I didn't get into it till I was like 28, which is older than probably normal for a lot of people. But I was working first, and the opportunity came to get into comics when I lived in Sonoma County, and I met Cat Ironwood and Dean Mulaney, who ran Eclipse at the time. And that's how I got in.
I remember that.
Yeah. And so that's how I got in at the front door. And then from there, I was able to get work at Marvel and DC. And it's really just.
So what were you doing before you got into comics?
I was a computer programmer, and I'm still doing that. Now I work on internet. I'm an internet engineer, as they call us now. But back then I was working on I was an RPG programmer working on IBM computers.
Wow. I don't know if I ever told you this or not way back when in the Malibu days, but I took 2.5 years of computer science when I went into college, and because I'm a first generation college student, and so I had no idea what I wanted to do, and I knew that I liked computers. It was kind of a new and happening thing. I had a computer, I had a Commodore, and so I just said, "Hey, I'll go into computer programming." And then 2.5 years later, I'm like, "There is way too much math in there for me," and so I changed from computer programming into creative writing, and I didn't tell my dad. Um, but because I remember before I went to college, I said, I want to be a writer. My dad said, "How are you going to make money?" And because I'm a first generation college student, I didn't know the answer to that. I'm like, "I don't know, Dad. I just know that's what I want to do." He says, "Well, you got to get a job that make money and take care of your family, and you need, if you don't know how to be a writer, you need to do something else." And so I'm like, "All right, well, I don't know how to do it," so I went into computer science. And 2.5 years later, my dad didn't care what I did, right? In general, he just said, "You're going to college," and so 2.5 years later, I changed my degree and didn't tell him until later. And by that point in time, it was kind of like, "Yeah, I'm about to graduate, Dad, and I'm graduating with creative writing." So.
Yeah, I was in the Air Force, and then when I got out, I wanted to, it's one of those things when you're a teenager, you're like, okay, I want to get a job and make a lot of money, but I don't know what I want to do for a living. I had various things, but I knew I would like computers. Same thing like you. I like computers. I like the idea of computers. So I got into it. I went to a trade school, which is now called Coleman University. And so I only went for like as long as I needed to graduate, which was like about a year. And then I went straight into it. But I took to it naturally. I loved working in computers. The only thing is the creative urge was greater than the desire to program. So when I got the opportunity to write, that's what I wanted to do. That's what I wanted to do since I was a kid, was to be a writer. But like you say, it's not an easy thing.
It's not.
Yeah, and there was other things that I wanted to do, but they were even less lucrative than being a writer. I wanted to own a bookstore, and I wanted to own a movie theater. Those are two things that kind of fell by the wayside.
Yeah.
I mean, I wanted to own. My idea when I was a kid was I wanted to own one of those single screen movie theaters like they had when I was a kid.
Yeah.
They don't have those anymore. So
it's kind of curious that you wanted to run a bookstore, because that's actually also one of mine. I talked to my wife. I said, part of my family's from again, I come from a family of farmers, and they're all back in Arkansas, and they still have the traditional little downtown square, and it's very small, a population less than 4,000. And I keep telling my wife, I said, I'd kind of like to. It'd be neat to come back here and get on the corner building with a bookstore, and me have like my office just above it, so I could kind of write, or maybe even tucked away in the side, so I can write, and then if someone comes in, I can help them out in the bookstore, but then go back to writing, because in a town that small, you're not going to be that busy. But we just kind of keep going back to, I'm not sure we can make it on that.
Yeah, see, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to have a used bookstore, and I used to read like about 3 books a week, and I used to just haunt bookstores all the time. This is before comic book stores even were common. And if you had to get comics, the only way to find used comics when I was a kid is you had to go to bookstores, and they would have a box of them under a shelf or something. And at least in the small town I lived in, which was Chico, California.
Yeah.
So I grew up in the same thing. Chico was a small town, and the same deal where it was like a classic downtown. You had your bookstore, and you had this and that and the other thing. And I always was attracted to having one of those musty old bookstores. That was the thing that I wanted to live in, when I was a kid. But I just grew out of that.
Hey, what's your Twitter real quick? I'm posting that I'm on live with you. You'll just post it on the Facebook. What's your Twitter?
It's James D. Hudnall, Hudnall.
I don't know if I can spell. Oh, there you are.
Yep.
All right. Yeah, I figured I'd just tweet and post on Facebook and.
Yeah, see, I should have done that, but I wasn't sure what a disaster this would be if if I didn't know what I was doing. So this is more of an experiment, but it's good, that we can work this out and get all the kinks figured out.
Yeah, a good picture of you on Twitter, man.
Oh yeah, it's a couple of years old. It's not that old, but
yeah.
That was actually at a dinner at San Diego Con. I was taken by a friend. David Lloyd took the picture, actually.
What picture?
That picture of me is, I think it's the one you're mentioning. I'm not sure if it's the same, but I think that's one David Lloyd took, actually.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. Yeah, I still can. I mean, I can see you. I've got the two screens going too. I can see you on YouTube. And I can't figure out how to join you. And then, of course, I'm looking at you here on Google, the Hangouts, and I can't figure out how to make my face go. It asks me to, it says to allow it, and I keep trying to allow, but I don't know what I'm doing wrong.
Oh, I'm seeing you now. Now I see you. Yeah, you got a bunch of old comic boxes behind you.
Hey, there I am. Hey, what's up?
You figured it out.
Yeah, this is all my comics behind me. Yeah, I'm in my little man cave, so I still don't know how to join you on YouTube though.
Well,
you can see me and know that I'm legit here.
A lot of my friends do this. They do Google Hangout, so I think that's probably what I should do in the future. Is just go to Google Hangout. I think I have
to get it on YouTube.
Well, if you have a YouTube channel, you go into your channel settings, and it's like your studio, as they call it, and they have a streaming thing on there. Actually, there's a little camera icon at the top of your screen on the right.
Right.
You click on that, and then you can say live streaming, and then it'll go. But I thought it would automatically go into Hangouts because I know that this gets archived. I just got to figure out this, how to do it right. The other thing is, in order to see like who's on and see the chat window, I don't have that right now. I know that might be something I need to install. Like it's an app that has to be hooked, like an extension. You have to. I think I have to do that. I didn't do that. I thought I did, but I don't know. There's like things they got to work out. The other thing is they got to remember to keep looking at the screen and stop looking down here.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I have you. You can see me. It does. I'm right here. If I'm looking at you right here, this is the Google Hangout window. But if I'm looking up there, that's where I have the Google window. The YouTube window open, and that's where I can see people. I can see the chat going on there. Like Lux Max Nike said, "Hey, folks." So I can see that, but I can't. I can't see it on the
I can't see any chat window. That's frustrating. Let me see. There's a there it is, chat.
Oh, so you see it now, yeah, right?
No, I clicked on chat, but it's not. I'm not seeing the chat.
Huh?
That's what I see. It says Roland Mann is live, but it doesn't show the chat window. It's weird. I got to figure this thing out at some point.
So Jeremy James just said you should reach out to Doug Tinapple and see if you can be on his show. He loves veterans and loves to support other creators.
Yeah, I've been on chats with him before. Usually I've been on one with Ethan Van Shiver and a couple with Mike Miller.
Yeah, Mike's invited me to come on. I just haven't been able to figure it out because you guys are way over on the the West Coast and sometimes y'all don't get started until real late. I'm like, man, it's like bedtime here because I'm on the East Coast. So
yeah, I don't know where Ethan is. Do you know?
I think he's in North Carolina.
Okay.
Don't hold me to that, but I do think he's on the East Coast.
Well, I plan on doing more. Like I say, I want to do these regularly, at least a couple a week. I want to interview people I know. I used to do a podcast where I did that. The trouble is with trying to get interviews with comic creators, is a lot of them they're busy, and it's trying to get your
Yeah.
schedule together with their schedule is not always easy, you know.
Yeah.
So I kind of gave up doing that because it was just kind of a hassle. But I like doing it, and I enjoy talking to people. I think it's better to do it on video because it's more personal. It just when you're
Yeah.
talking on the phone, it's just not the same. But I just think that what I wanted to do is just get into the business about aspects of it that people don't know, because a lot of the stuff you hear is just kind of phony, or it's just
Right.
or specific to something. Like people just want to push their books or whatever, which I don't blame them. I mean, I like
No, I
pushing,
don't either.
but it's like a lot of people want to know, like little things about the business. And to be honest, I really think that I hate to say this, but I think it's pretty honest. There's a lot of people in comics are not that real. A lot of people aren't gonna, they're not gonna like tell you, they're not gonna be up. I don't know.
Oh,
A lot of, they put on
yeah.
a face, they put on their sort of image, or they're either too political or something. I mean, they just can't be real.
Yeah.
I'm just not into that. I'm not that kind of person. I'll just tell it like it is. Yeah. But anyway.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't know. Every time I try to, all right, Jeremy says Ethan is in New Jersey.
Oh, okay.
Matt Cousin says, "Hey, James."
Hey.
So yeah, I mean, I can see everything here clearly. I'm punching all the buttons, but I don't see anything that says join the YouTube broadcast, or I don't know if maybe I don't know, maybe you need to invite me. I don't know. I don't know that. I don't know the answer to that. If I did, I would tell you. Oh, wait a minute. I see myself there.
Yeah, now I clicked the thing for screen sharing. That way, yeah, I was just looking at the settings here and trying to, yeah. Let's see. Yeah. That doesn't work. The settings just has very limited. I have chat, but chat doesn't seem to show the chat window when I do that. It's weird. Oh well. Anyway.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. I wish I did. I wish I could tell you, hey, go to this button and invite me, but I don't know.
Oh, I can.
There's an invite people.
Yeah, I can invite people if I want to. Oh, you saw that?
I did. Yeah, you still have screen sharing on.
Oh, I see.
You just have screen sharing on the Hangouts call here, but not on the Google video.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I'll just do the Hangout thing for this, and then I'll do for the video. I'll just do when I'm doing stuff by myself, But this will automatically archive to YouTube, so
okay.
Yeah, so it'll be available for people to watch later. That's why I know that it's at least we're not wasting our time. That people have a chance to read it, to see it later.
Well, they do say they can hear us, so that's good, and at least I can kind of see the chat going on, so maybe I can kind of interact with them there as well. Because Lux Max Nike says you should interview Roger McKenzie. Of course, that would be certainly a good one. And
yeah, I want to interview. I know a lot of people, and I would love to interview those that have the time, and we can make the connection.
Lux says, "Hey, I'm watching."
Cool.
Thanks, Lux.
Well, yeah, I definitely, I want to talk about business and.
Okay.
Well, actually, what I want to talk about with you right now is, why don't you tell me about your comics that you're doing?
Yeah, so I mean, the one that I've been pushing most recently is Cat and Mouse, and we did a successful Kickstarter back in May, I guess, for the first issue. We are working on, and it's done, it's out. Everybody has their copies now, so we're good. We're 100% fulfilled. We are steadily working on number 2. We're hoping that we were kind of hoping to be a little further along, but Dean, the artist, the penciler for it, had to go and get married. Silly boy, what's he doing? So his wedding and honeymoon kind of interrupted our flow. If he's listening to this, Dean, I love you, man. So yeah, we're busy working on number two, and of course, I mean, I'm sure like you, I've got all kinds of other irons in the fire, just kind of waiting on the artist to be able to carve out holes in their clock to make it happen. So, but Cat and Mouse is the one that is I've been promoting and talking about later. This weekend I'm going to be over at Emerald Coast Comics Fest, which is over in Clearwater, Florida, just north of Tampa. Hopefully they're not getting washed out now by the hurricane. And I'll have copies of it with me there, be promoting it. So, and I've got a couple shows coming up. I'm doing Conway here in about 3 weeks, Conway, Arkansas. Dean will be with me there, and we'll be pushing the book. And then a couple weeks after that, we're doing Memphis, Tennessee. And then around December 8th, I think it is, we're going to be doing Nashville, Tennessee. Not really an official tour, but kind of a little tour that me and Dean are going to show up at several shows and hopefully meet a lot of new fans. So for those who know, and James, I don't know if you remember this at all, Cat and Mouse was a series I did with Mitch Bird in the 90s.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, it was. We had a little bit of critical acclaim. Comic Shop News loved us. We made their top 10 black and white comics for most of our run, so we got some good love there. And we ran for 19 issues, almost 2 years, and did what I think we did some pretty good things. And then of course, me and Mitch just went in two different directions. And it's the one thing, I've done a lot of comics, but it's the one thing when I show, and I'm sure you get some of this as well. When I go to shows, I'm like, oh, here's my new book. It's XYZ, right? And they're like, oh, cool. Man, what about Cat and Mouse? You gonna bring back Cat and Mouse? I mean, I got asked that over and over and over again. And so now, finally, when I see people, I'm like, yes, I brought back Cat and Mouse. Here it is. Buy the latest issue. It's sort of a revamping, but I like to really call it more volume 2. It's not the same characters from before. I just figured 20 years later, 25 years later, we needed something new. A lot of the secondary cast will be the same; they'll be familiar. But the two primaries, I felt we needed something new. It's particularly the way the story ended with Volume 1. We kind of closed that chapter of their book. So they're brand new characters, brand new story. This first story is featuring them going to tackle human trafficking, which is something that I'm kind of passionate about. I think we have a human trafficking nightmare in the U.S., and our politicians just seem to, and people in general, just seem to want to ignore it. So this is something that Cat and Mouse are going to find themselves wrapped up in, and they'll end up tackling that in the form of bad guys in New Orleans. I mean, it's a fun action adventure, story, but it does deal with kind of the real topic of human trafficking. So,
yeah, that's kind of my the book that I'm working on right now is called Agenda, which I'm doing with Matt Cosson, who's watching right now.
Oh, okay.
And that is a superhero comic book where I wanted to tackle superheroes. Like I hear a lot of people, especially back in the 80s, would say, this is a real world superhero comic, And
right.
The thing is I never thought any of those things were real world superheroes because they didn't really understand how the real world works, I mean, right. So I decided to do my real world comic, except that I have, I know that superheroes as they are in comics wouldn't exist in the real world, obviously.
Right.
I could have gone in the direction of, say, Kick-Ass, which is like people putting on costumes, getting beaten up or whatever. But I decided, what if there was something that made it possible for people to have superpowers, like very limited amount of people? And why was that? That's part of the mystery of the story. But what would be the implications? Like, how would that change things? If you gave somebody powers, first of all, powers, anything in life, you don't know the nature of who gets to do what is never given to the right people usually, or it's never necessarily like so cut and dry like it is in comics where somebody is a good person and they want to do good or whatever. I mean, a lot of times people's idea of good is not always what other people's ideas of good are. So I wanted to do a comic exploring basically showing different characters, but not saying who's the good guy and who's the bad guy. It's up to you, the reader, to kind of decide who you like and who you don't like, and how do they play off against each other, and how do they interfere with each other's lives. So that there's more to it than that, but that's sort of like the idea that I had when going into this.
Cool.
Yeah, sort of.
Are you guys going to crowdfund this?
Yes. Ideally, I'd like to do a quarterly 48-page comic. That way, gives us time to work on each issue, but we give you a lot more bang for your buck, because the 20-page comic for $4 is just kind of,
right.
I feel it's kind of a rip-off. But if you get 48 pages, it feels like you have more substance. Right. I would love it if I could charge 25 cents like they were when I was a kid.
Oh,
but
man, no kidding.
But
Yeah.
I want to give people their money's worth, and I want it to be an evolving story with totally unique takes on some of the things. One of the things, though, that about what you said about human trafficking, there's so many subjects that comics don't touch, or if they do touch them, they don't have the writers don't have sophistication to understand what they're talking about, and so they think that the solution is to punch somebody out, like punch out a bad guy. That's the solution to the problem. I never saw that as a solution to any problem. It's going to solve a problem for a few seconds or a few hours or days, but the problem itself is yeah. But here's the thing: if you tackle something like human trafficking, or you tackle some of these serious issues that we have, it's going to upset a lot of apple carts, because you're interfering with trade. Basically, you're interfering with people's money. You're interviewing with political payoffs, like politicians who are getting paid off to ignore it are going to stop getting paid, and they're going to be upset. So, the real world implications of things, of taking on serious issues, there's a wide ranging things that can happen that trickle out from the epicenter of whatever you're doing. So again, that's something I want to tackle in my story, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And I agree with you. And I think those are the kind of stories that I want to read. And I think those are kind of stories that, I know, but I don't know how many folks listen and watching. So, but I teach at the university, and I teach comic writing. And I tell you what, I have learned so much from my students from simply teaching this class about some of it about the ills of the comic world, not the comic book world as an industry, but more about the comic writing. And my students aren't that interested in Batman and Superman and Spider-Man. They're just, they're cool. They go to see the movies, but yeah, no, read a comic, nah. They want to read something else. And I think they're more interested in that kind of thing, that sort of real world thing.
Well, you see, that's the problem. See, when I got into comics, which was a while ago, it was like I say, 86. At that time, most people getting into comics wanted to write mainstream characters. They wanted to be the Batman writer, the Hulk writer, which has never been my goal. I've always wanted to be the guy who wrote comics for everyone, for people who don't read comics. That was why I got into comics. I wanted to bring in readers that weren't reading comics. And I did have some limited success. Like I was instrumental in helping bring manga to the US. That was one of the things I did, which few people recognize me for, but I was one of the early adopters of manga, and I was also involved in some of the things. I just wanted to expand the horizon for comics. And
I do remember you introduced me to Jackie Chan before anybody knew who Jackie Chan was.
Yeah, I was into Hong Kong movies when we used to work at Malibu, Roland and I. Roland was an editor, and I was writing for Malibu. And I remember I took people to San Gabriel. They had Chinese theaters over there. We used to watch stuff over there. And we all went to a Jackie Chan festival, I remember.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun.
I never heard of Jackie Chan, but you're like, hey, you got to watch this. And I don't remember what the first time I ever saw it. It was on a little handheld thing, and I don't remember what it was, but then my wife and I, of course, this was back in the days of Blockbuster, And it wasn't, but a couple of years later, I saw Jackie Chan at Blockbuster, and we rented every single thing he had, and we became Jackie Chan fans. So
Yeah, I was watching the original Chinese before it became hit in the U.S. So this was like the early '80s,
hmm
90s. I'm sorry, but I
yeah,
was into like Asian films going back to when I was a kid. But yeah, like in this '80s, I was into anime, Japanese animation, way before anyone else was. I was watching Miyazaki movies before anyone knew who he was or anything. And I was
right,
watching him in original Japanese. And the first Miyazaki movie I saw was Castle of Cagliostro, which is his first movie,
yeah,
and that came out in '79. I saw it in '81, I think. But yeah, so that was a way before anyone was into that stuff. The people who were into anime back then, it was a very small group of people scattered
yeah,
around the country, but they were very small. It was a very like kind of small fandom at that time. Yeah, yeah, I just wanted to expose people to this stuff. So I went around trying to get other people and especially comics pros to see this stuff because I thought it would have a good influence on the
yeah.
culture, you know, because they had a lot of different ideas and everything, and I thought that would be. And now it's everywhere, but back then it wasn't. And in fact, when I was trying to get when I was working for Eclipse, we were like the distributor for Viz originally. We distributed all of Viz comics, and I was actually working for Viz, and I did a couple books for them. My the Psychic Girl and Area 88 were the first two that I started.
I remember them.
Yeah, and anyway, trying to get comic stores to order their books was just a nightmare because nobody wanted. They didn't want to. They didn't want to even consider it, you know, and it was a lot of work to get people interested in anime, but eventually, just by steadily, you know, getting the stuff out, eventually they caught on. And like everything in comics, it turned into a glut it was an anime glut, like there was a manga glut, like there were a lot of other gluts, you know, as you know, going through the industry. It was like one glut after another because one of the problems with the industry is they find something that's hot and then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy where they say this is hot, so
Yeah,
let's do like 9,000 versions of this. Everybody rips off each other's idea, and they flood the market. You know, I always avoided doing that, but that's how the industry did. That's
yeah,
part of the problem with the industry is it just jumps on. Now it's on the SJW bandwagon, except nobody's interested in that. It's not selling, so I don't know
yeah.
where they get the idea to go in that direction because it's not.
I don't either. And you'd think, I mean, we've all got access to the numbers thanks to John Miller's Comic Con. We've all got access to the numbers through Diamond, so it's easy to see how terrible those books are selling. And you would think that somebody up at Marvel and DC would say, "Okay, hey, look, this isn't working. We need to do something else."
Well, it's
And
not coming. It's in the case of Marvel, they hired. It's because they're politicized, and they just double down on things because they're moving. They think people need to believe what we believe, and so we're just going to shove it down your throat. And they just hire the same people that believe
yeah,
what they do. They got rid of anyone who doesn't think like them.
so 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 have you ever seen Ride with the Devil? the
Um, the
the
move.
Ang Lee film about
Oh yeah,
Confederate guerrillas,
right.
guerrilla warfare during the. I say Confederate because you may remember I'm very much a Southern boy. Except my family's from Arkansas. I grew up in Mississippi. I got Tennessee blood in me and all that kind of. I'm very much a Southern boy. One of my favorite movies Ang Lee did. But you said it. You almost said his exact quote. Is the reason I'm jumping in here. He said they get talking about being a little having some despair, kind of about the way the war's going and all that kind of thing. And one of the main character, they're hiding out at a house, and one of the main character talks to the gentleman who owns the house. He's lost his son in the war, and they go talking about Lawrence, Kansas, and all that kind of stuff. And some kind of comment is made. Chuck Dixon can quote this exact line to you. I'm gonna mess it up because I can't quote it exactly, but I know kind of the meaning. But basically, the young guy says, "Well, sorry, are you saying that we fight for nothing?" He says, "On the contrary, we fight for everything that we hold dear." And he goes, "And here's the thing," he said, "in I saw them build Lawrence, Kansas, and he goes, basically, what they want to do is they want to school everybody so that they think exactly like they do. And he said, the problem is, me and you, we don't care. We don't care. You can think whatever you want to think. We don't really care. But to them, they want you to think exactly as they do. And I think that summarizes kind of the issues that we're seeing today.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And unfortunately, it's invaded like all entertainment on every level, from comics to books to movies, TV, and it's because it's coming from the top. It's not coming from those companies by themselves. It's not automatically a conspiracy of all these companies. They're all getting it from above. And I have various theories as to that, but it's basically like it's a push for like social justice and socialism being pushed by elites who they feel like everyone should obey and believe this. It's really 1984 all over again, and it's going to fail. It's already failing. The tide is going out. And the thing is, you can't force people to like something. You can't tell people. It's just like, if everybody when they were a kid, they thought that I can get this girl or guy to love me if I do this or that or whatever.
Right.
You can't make other people like you. They either like you or they don't. They either are interested or they're not. And so, and it's because
you put on a different dress, but they don't change you.
And also, a lot of people that virtue signal, they're not. You don't know how many of them are for real, and how many are just saying it to keep their job. A lot of people are just running scared in this culture. They're afraid that if they say the wrong thing, that they could lose, everything, and that's really evil in itself. I mean, nobody should have to live like that, and that's one of the things that I personally don't like is the imposition of other people's values. I mean, it's not like I have anything against anybody else's values. They can believe whatever they want. They can love whoever they want. I don't care. I don't care about any of that stuff, but don't try to impose it on me. Don't tell me what to think, because I think for myself. I don't do it for you.
And don't make me, don't try to force me to say, yes, I think that's right. It's like, I'm telling you, I don't care what you do. Yes, but it's the right thing. Well, no, that shouldn't matter. The thing when I just say, I don't care. Do what you want to do. I don't care.
Yeah.
But you need to agree with me. I don't have to agree with you. I really don't. Couple comments here. Jeremy James says, outrage and oppression culture doesn't sell. And then Man Ray of Hope says, I just keep people in line. Okay, he has some language. So that they're not screwing kids and eating human flesh. He says, is that too much to ask? I don't think it is. I don't think it's too much to ask. What is it? Your right. What is it that your rights end where mine began, or something like that?
Yeah.
I don't know exactly how that was. Basically, I don't really care what anyone does as long as they don't hurt somebody else.
Well, my personal motto is live and let live unless you mess with me or mine.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Or I do kind of have, you start hurting kids. I do kind of get worked up about that. I as a father, I've seen how innocent little kids are. And I have zero sympathy for anyone who, and I think this may be kind of where my passion for the human trafficking thing, has come up. Is that, you look at a kid and you're like, that kid is so, number one, they're innocent, they're powerless, and we can't, anyone who will hurt a child. Someone said, I support the death penalty, and someone said, well, would you pull the button? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. If we know 100% for a fact that this person, hurt a child, and we can define hurt. I'm exaggerating for example, but of course, yes, I would have no problems with it.
It doesn't take much to mess up somebody for life. I mean,
No.
when you're a kid, little things. Things that my dad told me when I was a kid, he never hit me, but he said some things that affected me for years, and he wasn't being mean. He didn't think, he just didn't know any better. And it was just like, criticisms that just affected me. And the things, but that's just minor stuff. That's not even serious. What
Right.
people who have to deal with physical abuse and things like that,
Yeah.
it affects them for the rest of their life. And and there's a
Absolutely.
lot of broken people because of that. So that's one of the reasons it's so terrible. It's not just the act itself, but the damage it does to this person's psyche for the rest of their life. That's the horrible thing about it, and that's why it needs to be stopped.
Yeah. Man Ray of Hope says it's the greatest act of evil you can commit, and I agree. I agree with that. I think there are lots of evil, and talking about evil, I think this is one thing that some they're not willing to admit there is evil in this world.
Yeah.
And of course, I look around and say, man, how can you not? How can you not say that there's evil here?
Well,
Of course, there's
sometimes
evil here.
yeah. Well, some of those people are evil, and it's a matter of perspective. I mean, if you're something and you think, oh, it's not that big of a deal, that's because to them they're just bored with it, or that's the only way they can enjoy anything is to do something bad because they're so broken inside. But they're broken inside for a lot of things. That's why we should do what we can in our society to prevent people from being damaged like that. I mean,
Yeah.
I just talked to as a writer, I'm fascinated by other people's stories, so I always collect stories. I call it collecting stories, but basically I love talking to people about their lives and everything. So I've met people from all over the world and heard their stories. And one of the things is a lot of people have had really bad childhoods. I mean, I'm really lucky. I mean, my mom just died a few weeks ago, and I
Oh, I'm sorry to
realized,
hear that.
oh yeah, unfortunately yeah. So, but when at her service, I said that, I consider myself incredibly lucky because my parents are nice people and they never abused me or they never hit me even. But I've talked to people I have friends that they tell me about their childhoods, and it's unbelievable the stuff they had
Yeah.
to go through from their parents. I never understood for a long time why you would hate their parents, but a lot of people have reason to. And so I consider myself lucky that I avoided that. But a lot of people didn't have that luck, and it made them, it affected them a lot of times in bad ways, or not everyone's bad, but there's a lot of people that are in the middle somewhere. And I don't know. The problem is anything that encourages that or looks the other way is not good. And that's, as a society, we need to get back to a reasonable place where, first of all, for example, comics, I really find it offensive that there's so much politicization of everything, to where, it's all one-sided, and it's really not setting very good examples. It's really endorsing dysfunctional behavior rather than like normal healthy behavior. I mean, I'm not a moralist and I'm not a judgmental person or anything. But at the same time, I do understand reality from fantasy, and I understand what works and what doesn't, because that's all that matters to me is reality. It's one of my other phrases is reality, deal with it or it deals with you. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the way the world is. You can't think that it's all the way you think it is, because there's a lot more to it. You really have to be aware of your surroundings and everything, and
Yeah.
a lot of people aren't. And I think that's where we as storytellers have the opportunity to kind of show people things that they never thought of, or give them an impression of reality that they may not have realized. And that's a good storyteller, kind of like challenges people's views. And I don't think it's challenging people's views to just shove like political views down somebody's throat.
Well, I've always said that I tell my students, I say, look, here's the deal. Don't come into my class waving a flag, because I don't care. If you've got an agenda that you're passionate about, man, I applaud your passion. But don't come in here waving your flag and make that your story, because that's not a story. I said, as a Christian, for me, one of the things I've heard all of my life is that, I don't want to be preached at. I don't want to be preached at. And you know what? I get that. I understand that. But you know what? I don't want to be preached at either. So if you've got an agenda, if you're a smart writer, figure out how to make some sort of analogy work, right? And disguise it. tell me a story and entertain me, and then weave your message into the story so that I go, oh, okay, yeah, I can kind of see what you did there. But you're not beating me over the head with it, saying, "Here, you're an evil person. This is what you need to, agree with my agenda. Believe." Because the minute you do that, I'm done. I'm not interested. I am not afraid of opposing opinions, but I don't want you to beat me over the head with it. So yeah, I think, and I'm not afraid of uh, differing opinions, opinions that I really don't agree with. It's just, and I'm not afraid for them to be in my entertainment. Again, just don't beat me over the head with it and call me evil. Entertain me and weave your message in.
Yeah, that's it's like when I started, there were alternative comics, and Cabana Graphics and other companies were doing comics that were very similar to like SCW comics, but they weren't like, they, first of all, they couldn't push them on people. People either bought them or they didn't. But you
Right.
know, they were out there, and I didn't have a problem with them. I read a bunch of them, and I liked some of them, and I'm fine with them doing that. I just don't feel it should be the version, and everyone should obey this view of reality, because that's not necessarily realism. It has nothing to do with reality. It's just one person's point of view. It's not, and nobody should be, told this is. I mean, hey, I resented when I worked at Marvel. At that time, you couldn't cuss in a Marvel comic. Even you couldn't say hell or damn.
Right.
They didn't like that, and you couldn't have blood. They showed blood as
Right.
black as black. You couldn't show
Yeah.
red and stuff like that. And I really resented that when I was working there, because I was like, come on, these are stuff that they do on TV. It's if it's
Right.
acceptable for television, it should be acceptable in a comic book. So I don't like censorship from any side, but yeah, it's just what we have to do as creators is we have to stand up for what we believe. And if and my attitude is, as far as Marvel and DC goes, if they want to do that stuff, they can do it without me, because I'm not interested in
Yeah.
participating in that. And frankly, I never thought it was to my interest to do work for them anyway, because they end up owning it. And
Right.
it's just better to do your own thing, especially the older you get. You want to have control of your properties and everything.
Yeah, I know. I heard you mention early when I was still trying to. I was listening, but I was trying to get plugged in. But then I heard you mention that you never really had the desire to work for Marvel or DC. And I'll say for me, it was the opposite. I did. I grew up as a Marvel zombie. I was introduced to independent comic books in the 1980s. I read a bunch of yours, so I was familiar with your work before I knew who you were. But I did. I wanted to. That was part of what I wanted to do. I wanted to go work for Marvel, particularly. I wanted to write, things like Daredevil and Spider-Man and the Avengers. This was before the Avengers, certainly before now everyone knows who they are. Back then, Vision was always one of my favorite heroes. Of course, I think they've messed him all up now. But I will say I don't know those characters anymore. I don't recognize them, and I have zero interest. And then maybe some of what you said too is a little bit true. That as I've gotten older, it's like I'd rather create something that I can own and decide what I want to do. If I want to put blood in the comic, we can choose to do it, right? If we want to swear in the comic, we can choose to do it. I want to do something that I can make those decisions. And I think, I'm still one that thinks corporate comics have their place, although I think they're really dropping the ball, and that's completely different. But also I will say this. I think that right now, I think the 80s were a very good time for independent comics. We had a bunch of the companies you've already mentioned. Then we had the black and white boom in the late 80s. I think we're really in a time right now that is really good for independent comics. And I think a lot of this is because Marvel and DC are really dropping the ball, and readers are just abandoning them in droves. And they still like comics, they still like the medium. So they're looking for other stuff. And I think they're willing to try independent comics, particularly if it's maybe someone who, like yourself, and like Ethan and Mike and the guys who have experience. Say, okay, look, these guys have done comics before, so it's not like somebody I don't know. But I just think that they're willing to try alternate stuff now, and that to me as a comic book maker, that's exciting. It just excites me.
Yeah, I really well I think that the Marvel and DC are basically zombie companies. They've been taken over by these corporations. The people that run them don't really love comics. They're just there because they're put there, and because the people that ran Marvel and DC before, even though they were owned by corporations before, the people that ran those companies love comics. But now it's more like just a business, and they don't have any soul. I mean, they basically are just pushing a corporate agenda, and they're pushing, like I say, they're pushing corporate values on people and everything. And it's just people, the beauty of comics is that an individual person can create an individual piece of work that expresses themselves. That is something that those companies can't do. They can hire people to do that, but they all
Right.
get burned out eventually. And by just working for the master, they basically lose their soul or soul. So, I didn't do that because I didn't want to be like that. And I really felt sorry for some of my friends who did that, and they never ended up with nothing. They didn't end up owning much in the end. And by the time they were like cast out, they really didn't have a lot to show for it.
Right.
And that to me was a sad future I didn't want to have. So
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. No, you're right.
yeah, it's gotta, I think it's imperative, first of all, to kind of like stick together, and the whole Comicsgate thing where they're trying to tar everyone with the same brush, and trying to accuse them of all these ridiculous nonsense things, which they're guilty of.
Yep.
Um, they want to cast it on others as if somehow we're the person that they are. No, we're not. I mean, we're just people trying to do our thing. And, the thing is, I personally I don't care what they say because they're kind of meaningless because they'll be forgotten in the future. They
Well,
will be, they're going to be like, they're digging their own grave, basically.
yeah.
They don't realize
Well,
it.
one of the things that I've noticed, I am not real active on Twitter. I have a Twitter account, and I'm not real active, and I'm not really as active on all social media as I probably should be, as one who would love to promote my own work and say, hey, this is the stuff that I'm doing, check it out. And I probably should be more active, and I'm friends, and so I say all that to say the whole Comicsgate stuff kind of sort of snuck up and sort of surprised me. I'm like, hey, what's this? I don't understand. And so I read a little bit about it, saw some of the people involved, and I'm like, okay, cool. So we're just trying to, yeah, Marvel and DC is doing some really crafty stuff right now. They're really politicizing. So hey, we're going to jump over and do our own stuff. Not going to be politicized. I'm sitting there thinking, hey, that sounds like a really swell idea to me because I would love to read comic books that don't have that kind of stuff just thrust in my face. Jones, as in, Mann Ray asked me if I ever read Jones JSA from the early 2000s. So I'm wondering if he means Jerry Jones, Justice Society. So anyway, I saw all this stuff happening, and then I'm like, yeah, okay, well, okay, there's going to be some people who obviously, Ethan has a very much has a hate squad, right? He's people don't just because they're looking for one reason or another. And I will tell you this: I'm not that active on social media. I've never seen Ethan do anything but be nice to people. I met him at a convention. He was super nice to me. We never, he kind of came along a little bit as I was sort of, working my way out. So I never really had the opportunity to work with him. Mike, of course, I've known for a long time. Mike's a great guy. And of course, yourself, and a lot of the other folks involved. And then suddenly I see some people on the other side, and I'm like, dang, that was mean. That was harsh. Saw some of these people coming out and tweeting things. It's like, okay, look, I don't have to agree with you. I don't even have to like you. But that's some of the stuff they're saying is just doggone flat out mean, James. I'm like, dude, what are you? Not you, but I'm like, dude, I was
No,
like,
I
what are
know.
you doing? Why are you being so mean?
They're seeking attention, basically. They're trying to promote themselves by tearing other people down, which is a terrible thing to do. It's really one of the great sins, in my opinion, of being a creator, is to tear down another creator for your own advancement. That's just a bad thing to do. And to falsely accuse somebody of something for no reason other than you think it makes you look better. It doesn't make you look better. It makes you look worse. I mean, they don't understand that they're making themselves look worse in the eyes of other people. Maybe
They really are.
to their friends.
I will tell you this. I teach comic class, right? My students read comic books. There are a couple of creators that are now on my list of I will not allow my students to read because they're just too doggone mean. And I'm like, you don't have to agree with me. You don't even have to like me. But when you start calling companies and saying, hey, this person is a racist, don't publish their work. That crosses the line, in my opinion. And I'm like, have your opinion, sure, whatever. But that's too much. And so, yeah, you know what? I realize my class is small, but when a student comes to me and says, hey, I want to read this book by this creator, I'm going to say, you know what? No, you can't. You got to pick something else.
Well, that's the thing, is that some of those people, which we won't name necessarily right now, but some of those people.
Yeah, I was dodging the names.
Yeah, I call, like, two instigators, I call Gallstone, and the other one I call Major Wuss. Those are their initials. Those are people that just defame other people, and they think that somehow defaming other people is going to make them elevated in the comic community. Maybe among certain people, maybe at this particular point in time, but in the future they're going to be reviled, because what they're doing is they're making themselves into villains, and they don't realize how bad they're looking. They really don't get it. It's too bad for them, but that's their choice,
And I think fans are beginning to see it too, because they are doing this on Man Ray Hope says gangster tactics. They are doing this where everyone can see, and it's like, okay, that was a very jerk thing for you to say. I liked your work here, and I don't necessarily disagree with your opinion, but that was a very jerk way to do it. And I think they're losing. I think they're losing fans. I think they're losing the support of the people who might be, people who might even kind of, sort of come down along their line of thinking, and just because they're being so outright mean.
Yeah, they're really not. Their work is slipping too. They're not. It's like their work is fading along with their reputation. Instead of just, I mean, that's one of the things.
Names have been mentioned, but Man Ray of Hope says those two are past their prime.
Oh yeah, way past. And it's like theoretically, a person should only get better as they get older and creatively, because
Right.
if they're dedicated to their craft. But if you're dedicated to your own personal exposure and it's all about your ego, then you're not going to get better. And you can tell, because we all know creators they basically become more egotistical with age and less talented as they get older. You really have to focus on what's important, and that's, but that's neither here nor there. I kind of got to wrap this up now because I gotta do some other work. But I really enjoyed this conversation, and we definitely
Me too, sir.
I'd like to do more.
You invite me on, and please feel free to do it again. And maybe we'll figure out how to get the YouTube thing working. And I know I'm going to poke around a little bit and look at it here to see if I can't. Maybe there's something I was doing wrong on my end, or I don't have some setting turned on. I don't know, but this was fun. I would love to do it again. Maybe we can maybe even reminisce sometime about the old Malibu Ultraverse days.
Yeah, definitely like to do that.
I know there's some folks out there who'd love to hear us do that.
Yeah. And there's a lot of questions that we can answer.
Yep.
Okay, well, thanks a lot, Roland, and also this is my channel is Esper999. Please subscribe and click the bell. I will be doing this more often, and this is just the first one, but I intend to do this regularly. So I'd appreciate it if you all follow my channel. Thanks a lot. Good night.
All right.